In software engineering, we are looking at chapter number 7, Principles that Guide Practice. Requirements Modeling Principles. So what happens is, whenever we are dealing with software development life cycle process models, the first one is the communication. Finally, we deploy or delivery of the software. So this communication is done to get the requirement. We want to gather the requirement. It's rather requirement gathering. So what are the requirements to be given? Now when we model it, when we present it in some form so that it can be transformed into design and then to coding. So the different phases, for example, the communication, the planning, modeling, construction, deployment. So this is the modeling part. So all the requirement modeling, whenever you do it, whichever method you take, then what are the principles underlying making or doing the requirements modeling in order to fulfill the use cases, the user requirement, and the timely delivery of the product. The first one is the information domain of a problem must be represented and understood. This means the information domain is all about data. It's all data. So the data, how you're holding it, how you're sending it, how you're receiving it. That is, whenever you're talking about a software, what data is getting inside the system. It may be from the end users, it may be from the other systems, or there are external devices which are also putting some data here. So this is the data flow inside the system. What about the data which is coming out? This can be through some user interface. You want to show some graphics. There may be some network interfaces. You want to show it, say, in the form of reports. There are data which are placed permanently. These are maintained permanently. So this is the information domain we are talking about. Next is the functions that the software perform must be defined. So the software function is all about helping or solving the user problem. So what are the functions the software need to perform? We need to define it in the requirements modeling. You are actually solving the problem of the user. Okay, you are making it easier for him to work. The next one, which is the principle number 3, is the behavior of the software as a consequence of external events must be represented. Software you have made, but there are so many events and triggers. That is when the user will provide input, how the control data will be provided by any external system, if the network is there, how you monitor the data coming inside, going outside, how the software is going to behave or act in certain way if certain activities are done. So the behavior of the software has to be put in the requirements modeling. For example, if you are doing some audio video call, what is the bandwidth? What is the bandwidth it's using? So these are the behavior of the software. So you need to know it and present it. The models that depict information, function, behavior must be partitioned in a manner that uncovers detail in a layered or hierarchical fashion. What is hierarchy? The way is to use divide and conquer. So for example, an organization is there, 1000 people are there. So you will make a committee, food committee, one committee you can make as a cultural committee, the cleaning committee, then the procurement committee, the security department, like this. So you are making a department or the committees. So requirement modeling, you have to present everything in the form of layer, and that also to be in the hierarchical form. This may be the highest function or highest view. So you have to divide it. You have to use the divide and conquer strategy. Even if you can divide them more, you can also do that. So the hierarchical form and every layer should have enough partition. So if you have a large, or you can say a very complex problem, you can divide it into certain smaller problem, that is the sub problem, until every one of you is able to understand and able to implement that sub problem. So this is all about divide and conquer strategy. So what do we name it? We call it as partitioning or separation of concern, SOC. We have already seen that. So this is the main strategy behind the requirements modeling, partitioning and separation of concern. The next one is the analysis task should move from essential information toward implementation detail. So whenever the work is assigned to us, we just go to implementation, right? So this is required, but this analysis modeling, this all is started by when you know the problem. That is, it begins by describing the problem, and this is not by your view. What user's perspective is there, how user thinks about this should be your idea. How to define it, how to explain it. Now I'll tell you a video game. Now in this video game, this is a game where you want to instruct the player, which is the hero or protagonist of your game. Now she has to move, and this is a dangerous maze. So what is the problem? What is the essence of the problem? So the essence of problem is the hero or the protagonist has to move. This is the essence of the problem. Then we will go to the implementation detail. Now you understand the problem. You understood the problem. Now we'll go to the implementation detail. That is, this is a part of a design model. If you don't know the problem, if you don't know the essential information, there is no point in going to implementation detail. So here, which is a part of the design model, which is implementation detail, here you can give the voice input or say keyboard input. You can use mouse or joystick or the most motion sensitive device. Some sensors can be there, or even the user moves their hand or body. It should note it and move it in that direction. So this is the implementation detail, but essence is something different. Design modeling principles. So whenever we do communication, I'm going to tell you the phases of the software development lifecycle. So we gather the requirement, then we do the planning, all the project plan and the whole cost, budget, etc. is done here in this planning. Now the next step is a very important step. That is the design or modeling. So this modeling corresponds to the construction, and then you have the deployment. So everything that is the coding and testing will only depend on what you have modeled, what architecture style you have defined, what modeling you have done. So basically software design, if you want to equate it, say some architect is making your house. So architect plan for your house is the software design model for your software. So what he will do, he will make a 3D rendering. An architect will give you a 3-dimensional view of your house. And first it will make a 3-dimensional actual view. Then you will go to refine it. Then he is going to refine it. Where will be the parking? Where will be the plumbing layout? Where will be the electricity being put? All these will be the refinement. So this is the software design model, which is actually, you can relate it with the architect's plan. Okay. Now design model methods may be driven by various aspects. Whatever method you use to design model, it can be data driven, it can be pattern driven. Design model methods can also be object oriented. Okay. So when you are making a software, you want to make a software, when the design model data is data driven, everything is data. On the background, the main content or main thriving force is your data. Then you will start the data structure as the pinpoint, and that data structure will dictate what will be the program architecture, what are the components. So data will drive the design data models. Okay. Now, if the pattern is important, then the design model methods, if it is driven by or it is on the background forced by pattern, then this we have already made a requirement model. So we'll use the information what we have made in the requirement model. From that we can develop the architectural style or the processing patterns. So now the requirement model is the guiding or guide for your design model method of architecture styling and processing pattern. If something is already being made, you can use that also. That is the pattern, and that pattern will help you in implementing the process. Now if it is object oriented, design model methods can be object oriented. That is, first you understand the problem, then you make the classes, and then classes, the different instances are being made, that is called the object. So this object will have function and the variables. So here, whenever we are talking about object oriented paradigm, when your design model methods are all based on object oriented, then the problem domain basically are objects, and objects will dictate, or it will be the driver for the creation of what data structure and method you are going to use for your implementation. So design model methods can be driven by three forces. All the design models, whichever you use, we need to understand certain design principle. Even you are a modeler or a designer, it doesn't matter. Even if you're a software engineer or a software professional, then there are certain aspects you need to know. The first thing is design should be traceable to the requirements model. So whenever you have required or acquired the requirement, then the model whichever you are making, you will not make it just by that. It needs to correspond, it needs to point back to the requirements. So requirement model, it should trace. Okay. So the requirement model is doing what? Requirement model is all about describing the data, information domain, the functions which are visible. For example, 50 functions or 50 user cases are there. So what are the system behavior? The data, of course, the function, the system behavior, and these behavior will be on certain events. Okay. And there are a set of requirement classes, that these will be the classes, and these classes will be combined in a package, and what objects will be using, what methods will service them. So basically this design model, whichever is there, we are translating it to design model. That is, design model will come out only from the requirement model. So this requirement model is the basis of the design model. This is very important. That is why we are saying that design should be traceable back to the requirements model. So this will decide what architecture you are going to use, because design model is going to translate the data information into architecture. What are the subsystems? What are the major functions? What are the components? Because ultimately you are going to realize the classes or requirement classes. The principle 2 is always consider the architecture of the system to be built. What is architecture? Architecture is the skeleton of the software or the system to be built. Skeleton like your body. If the skeleton is there, where you have to put the eyes, where you have to put the liver or the kidney. So design should start with the basic skeleton or architectural considerations. Then only you can talk about component level issues, that where to put what thing. As I said, where to put the heart and a skeleton. Heart is a component. So that will only come when you have already decided about the architecture. Next thing comes is the design of data, which is as important as designing of processing functions. So we make a class, then we see functions, we see what are the variables. So we don't think about the data. But here, what I'm trying to suggest is data is very important. What is the flow of the data? This will make the design and implementation of the software component quite easier, because if you have a well structured data design, that will help in all the other parts, all the other phases. Next thing is interfaces. Interfaces can be both internal and external, and this must be designed with care. So let me give you an example. For example, you have made a software or a system, say website, web app, etc. Now, whatever you have done, it will interact with some database. It will interact with some networking devices or World Wide Web. So these are the interfaces. This design of interfaces becomes very important. If you are not able to design it, how are you going to validate it? Next one is user should design or user interface design should be tuned to the needs of the end user. However, in every case, it should stress ease of use. So whatever is being used by user is visible to it. I'll give you an example, Amazon. Now when you use Amazon, why Amazon is so popular? So you just have to give one-time credit card. It will only ask for CVV next time. Most of the options will give you the prices are less. Basically, the user interface is so good, you would like to go on Amazon again and again. So whatever internal function you have given, best data structure, well-designed architecture, but if the user interfaces or user interface design is not good, everyone will think the software is bad. That is, what you see is what you praise. Component level design should be functionally independent. And then components should be loosely coupled to one another and to the external environment. So you need to understand, I'll give an example and then try to tell you the difference. You made two functions. The function first is, say, the database connectivity. The other function you have made for network connectivity, for example, TCP and UDP you have implemented. In database, you might have implemented some, retrieval and queries. Okay. Now, if you have certain more function, you can combine them, call them as module. What I'm saying is, the function which you have made for database connectivity or database handling, there shouldn't be any network work here. Okay. Only this function should deal with database and database activity. The cohesion should be strong between a function, say lines, codes, etc. or working. Coupling is the function database and the function which is networking function. The interdependency or the linking between these two should be as less as possible. The coupling is all about dependency between two different functions which are doing two different tasks. So as the coupling increases, the error will propagate and the maintainability will be less. So cohesiveness is for a function, for a module. Coupling is between two modules. Cohesiveness should be strong, coupling should be less. Next one is design representation model should be easily understandable. So this is very obvious that if somebody has to make a code, he need to understand design. And if design is not easy, how he is able to understand? He will not be able to understand. The design should be developed iteratively. What we do, we make a design, we say, oh, I'm done. We just go to construction. But the thing is that design may have some problem, may have some bugs, errors. Bugs are actually for coding, errors you can say. So some ambiguity, you might have not catered to some requirement. So there should be multiple iteration. Next one is creation of design model does not preclude an agile approach. What does it mean? Agile software development or agile methods, they say that the design should be as less as possible. Okay. But if you are writing some inline documentation, if you are writing code, you are putting some documentation, that is always welcome. But you need to keep this code consistent, code description consistent. The design model actually is providing benefit or help. Why? Because when you are making design, you might have taken off certain, say, arbitrary things, or which are you can say duplicate things. So you have actually stripped off the unnecessary technical detail. That is why this design model, it is a benefit. Quality. Whatever object or stuff you take from the market, everything is making a difference with quality. So when we are talking about design principle, if they are properly applied, both the external and internal quality factors a good design should exhibit. So quality can be external, quality can be internal. Quality is consisting of various things, right? So the external quality factors, those external quality factors, those factors which are easily known, observed by the user, like the speed, like the reliability, like the correctness, usability. So if the software is easy to use, it has good quality. Internal quality factors are various other factors which I have highlighted here. There are 10 quality factors which I have highlighted on the picture. But these are utmost importance for the software professional engineer. So they lead to high quality design from the technical perspective. So this quality is very important. We'll talk about that in the later discussions. Living modeling principles. So what are these? See, I'll give you an example first. First, you want to show something to someone. Here is a picture of living model illustrating principle of the fourth bridge. Fourth, F-O-R-T-H. So how the bridge will be formed, this is the living modeling. So same thing, we are also talking in terms of software. So Brew, he describes this living model which is live. You can show it to the user, you can show it to the management, and this living models, these are basically the paradigm that combines the model based development, because you are making models. These are living models, and these models will be helpful for the management and operation of service oriented systems. So this living model, because here if you are standing, you know how the fourth bridge will be made. Okay, this is the formation. So this living model is all about helping the project stakeholders. So there are 8 important crucial principles that that are established for living models environment. Because first one is stakeholder centric models should target specific stakeholders and their task. So whatever models you are making it for the stakeholder. Let me give an example. You are making an e-commerce website, for example, food delivery. Okay, now this is a food delivery. Now the customer is going to order some food, so they will have a different kind of model they need. That is, the programming or the user interfaces will be different. There will be some user, there will be some hotel person, restaurant person, there will be some delivery boy. So everyone is the stakeholder. So you have to make the model according to them. The models and code should be closely coupled. If you're making a model, why are you making model? In order to construct it, means to construct it in coding. Bidirectional information flow should be established between models and code. If you're making model should correspond to code and code should correspond to model. This is the both way duplex system. A common system view should be created. That is, when you make a model for the stakeholders, how the system will be seen, this has to be created. The information in the model must be persistent to allow tracking of system changes. Now the model is being made, now there are certain changes. What change is, you are, even before making model, you already know and you have already catered to it. Information consistency across all levels of model must be verified. So if you are making model, every model should be consistent. Okay, so for every say for the customer or the hotelier or the delivery boy, it should be consistent. Each model element has assigned stakeholder rights and responsibility. As I just suggested, the customer will have some other right and responsibility than the delivery boy. So each model should have right and responsibilities. the states of various model elements should be represented, because the state will change. The customer, if he orders or if he has done the payment, then he will track. So the state has changed. So this is how the states of different model elements should be represented as the time will progress. Okay, now construction principles we'll take next time. Till then, thank you so much. Take care of yourself.